Hello, I'm Sasha of Sasha Makes Cards, and today I'm here with Whimsy Stamps sharing how I made a super fun and very green Halloween card. For this card, I used the Cutie Batootie Stamp Set, the Eek Word and Shadow Die Set, and the Howling Night Die Set. I'm using the Howling Night Die Set for the moon as I want to die cut it and use it as a mask later on. I first started by stamping my image and sentiment onto a 100-pound hammer mill cardstock using an alcohol marker friendly ink. For this, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. Now this stamp set contains 3 images and 4 sentiments. Today I decided to go with the little image of the bat flying and the "it's too scary out there" sentiment. As I already mentioned, I plan on using the moon from the Howling Night Die set to act as a mask. My plan for this card is to have the bat, the little flying bat, kind of look like he's flying by the moon, so that's why I decided to go with this image. Once I was done stamping, I then fussy cut both the image and the sentiment out using a pair of spring-assisted scissors. Today I'm going to be using Ohuhu alcohol markers to color the image, and here is the little color combination chart I've created of the different colors I'm going to be using. Feel free to pause the video and refer back to this if you would like. As well as I'm coloring, the colors are in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, so that is easy to see which color I am using and how I color. For today's card, I decided to go with a green and blackish gray color combination, as I think they're pretty spooky colors, and my favorite color is green, so whenever I have the chance to use the green in a card, I will often take it, and I thought having a bat with some green in them would be really cute. Working from my darkest color to my lightest color, I first started coloring with the blackish gray color combination. I started with NG07, then NG06, then CG070, then CG050, and lastly CG030. As for the green color combination, which I used for his ears, his wings, and the little tuft of hair on his chest, I started with G7, then G470, then G190, then G170, and lastly G130. After I was done coloring with the alcohol markers, I then went in with some pencil crayons or colored pencils. For this, I'm using the Prismacolor Premier colored pencils to add a little bit of extra shading to the image. Now, it may only be August, but for me, this is very much the time of crafting some spooky, Halloween-y cards. It's one of my favorite times. I love Christmas, don't get me wrong. I think Christmas is my favorite holiday, but when it comes to crafting, there's just something I love about all the different Halloween and fall, autumn stamp sets that I love, and the different color combinations. I love all the spooky color combinations. It's definitely my favorite time of the year when it comes to crafting. And like I said, green is my favorite color, and I mean, green is a pretty festive Christmas holiday color too. But the green at Halloween just feels very spooky, and I love using it whenever I can. Now that I am done with the coloring, I move on to the die cutting. Now the Eek Word and Shadow die set comes with 2 options for the shadow die. It comes with a stitched option and then the regular shadow option. Today I decided to go with just the regular shadow, but you can totally go with the stitched if you want to add that really fun stitched effect. So I die cut the Eek as well as the moon from the Howling Night die set in a scrap piece of white cardstock, and then the shadow die from the Eek Word and Shadow die set in a scrap piece of black cardstock. Now that I have all of the elements die cut, I then move on to creating the background. Like I said earlier, since my plan for this card is to use the moon from the Howling Night die set as a mask, I used some painter's tape. You can use masking tape, washi tape, whatever, some low-tack tape. I just went with painter's tape because that's what I have. Stuck that down to my A2 size card background and then placed that background onto a sticky mat. I then started to create kind of a nighttime sky themed background using some different colors of Distress Oxides. For this, I used Black Soot Distress Oxide, Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide, and Twisted Citron Distress Oxide. I started by ink blending black soot into the very top corners of the card background, gradually getting lighter as I went down to create a gradient. So I went from black soot to mowed lawn to twisted citron. Because it's a nighttime scene, it's just a dark kind of grungy sky, you really don't have to worry about the colors too much. It can be a little smudgy, it doesn't matter. Also, in the end, I like to splatter, so often the splatter hides any mistakes that I make. so you don't really have to be too careful. Once I was done ink blending the sky itself, I removed the mask for the moon and started very carefully ink blending some of the same Distress Oxide colors onto the moon using some smaller detail blending brushes. I made sure to use a lighter hand when doing this part, as I want to make sure that the moon kind of still had that glowing effect. I didn't want it to be too heavily colored in with the oxides, as I wanted to still have a slight glow to it. After I was done creating the background, I moved on to creating a very simple green gradient onto the ink. All I did for this was use the same detail blending brush I used for the moon, and very lightly used Mode Lawn, darker at the bottom, lighter as it went to the top, and then I added a very small amount of black soot to the bottom. I don't even know if it's really that noticeable, but that's what I did. And because I can never resist, it's time for some splatter. I placed the moon mask back on the card background and then splattered it using water, some white paint, and black paint. For the white and black paint, I placed it onto my glass matte work surface, sprayed it with some water and that I have in a spray bottle, and then splattered it with a fan brush. Now that the background is completely done, all I have to do is glue everything down. I first glued the letters of the Eek sentiment onto the shadow die, and then I glued the background and everything else down using some Barely Art liquid adhesive glue. And that is the completed card project. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out the description below for a complete list of the supplies I used to create this card from Whimsy Stamps, as well as links to both my social media and the Whimsy Stamps social media. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.